Hello and welcome to The Birth of a New Dimension. My name is Aurora, and for the next hour, we will be discussing topics about higher consciousness and multidimensional perception and multidimensional awareness. Before I begin on the topic that I would like to speak about today, I would like to remind everyone that January 2016 marks the beginning of the semester for Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. So this is the online class that I have run for the past 3 years, and that will be running again. And there are 2 levels to this class. If you are familiar with the information, that's the initiatory level, and then there's also the advanced level. Students from any previous semester have what I like to joke is the right of return. So once you have paid tuition or arranged for tuition one time, you can always return in future semesters and simply take part or audit the class in order to add to the discussion, because I like to say it is a one-room schoolhouse with people of many different levels, many different viewpoints and levels of awareness, and that we all add to it, we all help one another. So to have someone who's already been through the class to return, like as a grad student, is quite wonderful, and people have a lot of insight. So the way the class is run, there are recorded lessons that students access on their own. There are various topics from energetic anatomy to, once you learn about your anatomy, things you can do with it, like creating a Merkaba or light body vessel, or the Flying Rainbow Lasagna energetic maneuver. Because the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, hello, if you are new to my broadcast or new to my work, the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is a type of hyper torus or higher dimensional torus or donut shape that I invented as part of my journey coming into this dimension as a walk-in. And it is a shape that one can apply to one's non-physical energy field and also to one's DNA, and these 2 aspects of self are intertwined and have an impact on one another. So there are various visualizations and meditations in order to achieve this, and also just learning the basic facts of what it is and how to accomplish it are all part of the program. The program is a 5-month-long course of learning. However, I'm going to split it up into 5 individual 1-month-long segments that people can choose to participate in at their discretion. Like, you can choose however many segments you'd like to be a part of. So, briefly, in order to get all the details, visit my website, flyingrainbowlasagna.com. And this is a newly redesigned website. Many thanks to Meg Montgomery, my web mistress, for doing this for me. And you will find excellent links to my artwork and videos that showcase my artwork and descriptions of the upcoming course. So, on to the topic for today. This was incepted from a discussion at a recent holiday party where a person asked me about upcoming presidential elections. And basically it was very cute because she was like, we don't want to make waves or make anyone uncomfortable at this holiday party, but what do you think about these presidential candidates? What's going to happen in the future? And this is a really good discussion about how to respond when another person asks about the future, or when your own inner anxiety arises and says, but what about the future? Well, this is the answer. If you're new to my broadcasts and new to my artwork, please look at my artwork. You can find it either on my website at the art page or on the UCY Flying Rainbow Lasagna homepage. There's a link to the Twitter feed. It's at Birth Dimension, and you can click on any of those pictures that I have uploaded there so that you can see what I'm talking about. Because the non-physical energy centers of your body, aka the chakras, chakra from Sanskrit for spinning wheel, and this is a reference to the charioteers, the chariots that used to go across ancient India. And the charioteers were considered to be successful, like successful warriors who had won and vanquished their foe, when they could roll across an area and not have their wheels be stopped. And this is the idea of your chakras. You are like a charioteer, and these are like the wheels of your chariot, and you are victorious when your wheels run in an unimpeded fashion. Your chakras are shaped like twin tori. toruses or donuts. And the way that they intersect forms a 4-vortex shape. And the vortices that I draw, I also refer to as time vortices, because now here's the critical integument of understanding. Your chakras aren't just glowing balls of light. They're not just pretty. They have a specific shape, just like your heart has a shape or your liver has a shape, and they perform a function, and the function is based in time. So you and I, we are made of third-dimensional matter, matter that exists in the 3D realm. However, we are also fourth-dimensional. We are submerged within the sea of time, and we exist on a timeline, or submerged within the flowing river of time. And many of us, do not have the perspective of being up above the river, which would be a fifth-dimensional and higher viewpoint. From that viewpoint, one may perceive where the flow of time is originating from, what it is doing right now, and where the flow of time is moving into what would be defined as the future. So when we are asked to perceive the future, we are perceiving an array of possibilities. And these are timelines stretched before us almost in the shape of a fan. You're at the tiny point of the fan, and then spreading outward from where you presently stand in the moment now, there are literally an endless number of possibilities. These are the permutations or iterations. Every single possible combination of thought and experience and action stretches out before you. So the real question is not about what is going to happen in the future, because the most accurate answer that any real oracle would give you is that everything is going to happen in the future. The entirety of possibilities shall occur. However, the real impeccable question to ask is, what will you and your awareness be experiencing as you move into the future? And in order to answer that question, we have to look to the shape of your belief system. This is like the way your ship is built. Also, what you're thinking at the time, the wind that is in your sails. And these things determine your trajectory of consciousness, or like the direction that your ship is traveling in. And there are also external circumstances, or the context within which you reside, because you do not exist as a period of time disconnected from or discrete from all of the other aspects of time that have come before and that will come in the future. Oh, no. You are part of a continuum of time, and that's you and your thoughts and your actions and your belief system all have to be woven into, I could say it is like a time tapestry. So you're not just a few little threads of your own discrete individual person making a life. You are threads of your own life that connect to threads of other people's lives and other larger events, and that are woven into, we could say, a giant, very thick, fat rope of events. And this is the realm of higher dimensions. So in the realm of higher dimensions, there are beings that exist. They have a body, but it's not an anthropomorphic body. The anthropomorphic body is the one that I presume my audience members are wearing right now. It's got 2 arms and 2 legs and a head and a face and 2 eyes and a mouth with moving mouth parts and ears that you can use to listen to the flapping of my moving mouth parts. It is the human-sized and human-shaped aspect of self. So higher dimensional beings, like of the 5th dimension and higher, do not have an anthropomorphic form. Their body is not made of physical cellular matter as the body of you and me, and I presume other audience members here, is made of physical cellular matter. However, your lifespan, the timelines that comprise your life, are an integral part of the lives of higher dimensional beings. Everything that is happening in your life, all of the events of your life and all the thoughts and feelings and emotions that happen as a result of those events and play into those events, all of that, your personal individual experience, is a part of the time tapestry that is the body and the metabolism of higher dimensional life. So your body has a metabolism. You ingest X number of food-based calories, and then you exert yourself and are able to emit X number of exertion calories. And if you ingest less food than you exert, it means that eventually you will starve to death and die. And also, if the opposite is true, if you ingest way more than you exert, eventually you will, become 1,000 pounds and die. So achieving homeostasis means regulating the flow of caloric intake in and caloric output out. Higher dimensional beings also have a metabolism. Their metabolism has to do with the flow of time and awareness. The flow of time and awareness within your individual life adds up to and comprises and is a part of the life and the organs or body parts and metabolism of a higher dimensional being. In trying to think of an analogy that I could use to share this information with you, I thought about electrons. In our physical cellular bodies, there are cells. The cells are made of molecules. The molecules are made of atoms. By the time we get down to the level of the tiniest of atoms, and atoms have within them electrons, we are getting away from the sense of something being alive, like a one-celled organism or a cell we can certainly see is alive. It is a little bit more difficult when we chop that matter up into even tinier elements and we see an atom or an electron to think of it as alive. And when we get right down to it, an electron is just an electrical charge. It is an abstraction. It's a piece of energy. And you, as a multicellular creature, you have a persona and thoughts and feelings and all of these things. You're much more than just an abstraction. But when you look at it, everything that you are and the cells of your body and the fact that you are made of matter, you're just made up of these little tiny pieces of abstract electrical charge. This is analogous to what is happening on a higher dimensional level. The higher dimensional being is a huge, enormous abstraction. Does not have physical blood and red blood cells that flow through it the way that your body does. But if you chop that higher dimensional being into smaller pieces, chop it down, chop it down, chop it down, eventually, when you look at those timelines, you see that all of the timelines that are woven together that make this higher dimensional tapestry, there's little tiny people living on those timelines. There's little tiny people that have thoughts and feelings and organic life, organic cells of their body and organic blood that flows in their body. And so only when we get down to the very, very tiniest level and examine who is occupying these timelines do we find actual anthropomorphic life. So your little tiny life within a multicellular, physical structure is part of what creates this enormous abstract entity. And this abstract entity, fifth dimension and higher, we are talking about intelligence on a grand galactic scale, where even our galaxy would be like maybe one little cluster of nerve cells within an enormous, we want to say thought processing apparatus. It's beyond even a brain, because with our body, science tells us that so much of our mind is centered in our brain, and our thoughts and perception are centered in our brain. And there's a lot to that. However, we have the type of thought that is muscle memory, the type of thought that we experience in our fingertips, like when you're learning to play the piano and you can feel where the notes are on the keyboard. That is a different type of intelligence that is not focused in your brain. So to simply say that the galaxy is like a neuron in a great brain is not accurate. It's way more accurate to say that you might be a little tiny feeler on the fingertip of the pinky of the piano player of a size that is of a galactic size, and that is no less valued to be that peripheral apparatus than to be what science describes as the central nervous system. With that statement, I'm actually trying to decentralize our sense of consciousness. Someone also once asked about the higher senses. How many higher senses do we have? Like, we have 5 regular physical senses. And how many higher senses do we have? And the best answer to that is, 360. Imagine a complete circle or a complete sphere that encompasses you. And every single little fiber or point on that circle is a little tiny sensory organ. And with our complete circle or sphere or shell of perception, we are able to perceive everything. So we not only perceive the information that is directly in front of our face, we can also perceive what is behind our head. And we're also, in coming to that level of consciousness, understanding that we are not only perceiving this moment now, we are also perceiving throughout time what we've already experienced in our lifespan in the past and what we will experience in the lifespan that is yet to come. All of this is relevant to the discussion of what's going to happen in the future, who's going to be president in the future. So let's say that there is this larger, higher dimensional being, and in order for its arm, just, arbitrarily choosing a body part, for its quote-unquote arm to be shaped properly, certain events have to be happening here in this time and place. Certain events in your life, in the social and cultural matrix within which you're submerged, and in the planetary experience. Because it's all well and good to be like, who's going to be the president? And if there's a major hurricane, then there's no voting because there's no electricity and no one can talk to one another. Just using a random example there. But the idea that the planet, who would be in charge of creating hurricanes, can have an impact on timelines. So when we begin to understand this, that you're not just an individual discrete being, you're embedded within a flowing energetic pattern that is time and consciousness, and that pattern adds up to a higher dimensional being's life. I've also described on these broadcasts in the past the idea that the pattern that I paint, and also the pattern that we explore when we explore music, which is sound waves arranged according to pattern, as opposed to sound waves that are random. When we have sound waves that are according to a pattern, it sounds like music. And when we have waves that are arranged visually, we say this is art, okay? And all of this is the representation of this higher dimensional language. It's a language of color, line, shape, form, movement, texture, and tone. Tone, like music. And when this pattern is expressed through physical multicellular life, we define it as being alive. If you take a bunch of goo, like a bunch of amino acids and chemicals and caloric energy, and mix it all up together, you only have a living being if all of the things are structured correctly. If you don't actually structure it correctly, you just have a pile of goo. You'd have like a compost heap, okay? So the difference between your body, and a compost heap is that your body has a unifying consciousness that resides within it. The sense of awareness, the sense of a person who looks out from within your eyes and from within your neurology. That consciousness is an organizing force, and it organizes your cells to be more than just a rotting, decomposing, putrid compost heap. And when we conform to this harmonic pattern, this structure of language in the cosmos, we stay alive. In the time vortexes that I draw, there's the periphery of the vortex and the center of the vortex. The periphery, this is the outer edge, and these are the areas of greater probability, greater likelihood. These are all areas where death is inevitable. The flowing membrane of death is the boundary. If I had my paper and pencil and you were here in my studio right now, I would be drawing a little picture, and I'd be drawing a picture of these hourglass shapes, and the actual edge of the shape is made of a flowing membrane, and the membrane is comprised of all of the final moments, the final denouements of, what is the movie or the play of your life. If you live to be 99 years old, at the moment of your death, you contain the totality, like the acquired videotape or DVD records of everything that you have experienced up until that moment. So theoretically, we can get rid of all of the previous moments and just rather save that final moment in order to say these are all the things that happened to this version of you in your life. So this is also another profound understanding here that there are many different versions of you, and that the person who is listening to this broadcast is only one of many different aspects of yourself. So here's one way to step into gratitude, to understand that there are aspects of your own self that didn't even make it out of bed this morning. Maybe a meteorite fell through the roof and crushed them in their bed where they lay, never woke up, or died of a heart attack, or eaten by wild pandas, whatever. Pandas broke into your house last night and ate your face while you slept and you never woke up. I'm thinking of the most ridiculous assertions here. But you are the version of you that actually woke up and successfully got out of bed and successfully has completed whatever you have done, and now it is 2:18 p.m. And now we're looking forward at the rest of the versions of you that move forward along these timelines in this day. There are versions of you that occupy the periphery that will not successfully make it to the end of this day. And the reason why they will not live is because they are not conforming to the harmonic structure of the pattern of energy and consciousness as it flows in the cosmos. They are going to do something that makes them outside of the pattern. They might think an inappropriate thought, or perform an inappropriate action, or eat an inappropriate substance. Things like a sandwich that is filled with salmonella, or drinking a cup of drain fluid, or drinking gasoline. Any of those things would make that person no longer conform to the harmonic structure that we call life, and they would not extend their timeline even to the end of the day. Let's think of something equally as dramatic. The thought, like how can a thought be an inappropriate thought? The thought, I have to drive to the store and buy milk. And the person gets in their car and, gets smashed by a Mack truck or whatever coming out of their driveway. And they never make it to the store to buy milk. There's nothing inherently wrong with wanting to go to the store and buy fresh milk. However, on that occasion, it was not the right thought because it did not lead in the direction of eternal life, eternally extending one's timeline. So you can think of your life as an abstraction, like as a video game, and you can extend the timeline or extend your life and extend your video game and keep on quote unquote playing if you do and say and think the right things. And you can make this complaint. You can say, Aurora, that doesn't seem fair. That seems capricious and random and arbitrary, because how am I supposed to know whether it's the right time for me to hop in my car and drive to the store for milk, or whether it will end horribly in tragedy and I'll be nothing more than a smear on the highway? And the answer is, I would agree that that would be a totally unloving and unfair premise if we did not have the capacity to perceive and the capacity to use our inner steering wheel. So our perception comes through our third eye, higher consciousness perception, and this is how we are able to determine whether an action is conforming to this harmonic principle or whether it is going awry or going towards the periphery or going away from eternal and extended life and consciousness and towards a truncated or ending of the consciousness. And we have an inner guidance that can tell us when we are going in the right direction. This inner guidance apparatus is actually made of your brow chakra. This is the center of your forehead, known as your third eye and associated with the color of indigo, and also your crown chakra. Don't forget about this vital connection, because if you only have activated your indigo chakra and not activated your crown chakra, you're seeing on the level of anthropomorphic interpretation, not on the level of empirical information and pure abstraction. And it is that interplay where there is the most dangerous area of misinterpretation. There are many people who achieved what would be considered quote-unquote magical powers. They activated their third eye. They saw all sorts of things. They didn't see it accurately, and they made very big misinterpretations, and their actions were miscalibrated based upon those misinterpretations. And in order to really see accurately, your crown chakra is like a compass needle that can sense whether you are traveling on the right timeline and in the right direction. And here we define right direction as that direction that is in alignment with the source of consciousness. And this is like a broadcast or like a moving target, because you need a compass to tell you when you're tuned in, because it is always shifting. It's like a radio broadcast that sometimes it's at 92.3, sometimes it's at 92.7, sometimes it's at 92.9. And you need to be constantly tuning in to make sure that you're really getting the right broadcast. Well, it is your violet chakra that helps you to tune in and make sure you're getting broadcast from quote-unquote channel God, all right? And it's absolutely necessary to raise your energy all the way up to that level in order to see clearly. And this is our challenge. This is the challenge of beings in the physical realm here in this time and place, because there has been a genetic degradation that has taken humans away from their higher senses and their capacity to sense with their indigo and crown chakras interlocking together and working together as a team. So up until this point, yes, the only way that humans have been able to travel along their time vortex is through trial and error. Do something and see if it ends in the final membrane of death, and then if it doesn't work, circulate back to the beginning and try again. When we cultivate our energy and we are able to perceive through our higher faculties, we can see it coming, can see the membrane of death as it is approaching. It is a perception, not necessarily a physical seeing, like your physical eyes are sensing something impending. It is a sense that is a higher dimensional sense. So a person might feel like their life is not on track, or they might feel emotional perturbations, something akin to anxiety or emotional discomfort. There are a lot of ways that I could describe it, but it is a sense of being not quite right. So if we use the analogy of Aurora, how would I be able to tell if I'm going to get in my car and go out for milk and get hit by a car instead of coming home safely? And the answer is that you would feel the wrongness of it. Like going to find your car keys and feel, this is not the right thing for me to do right now. Or as you got in the car, you might feel like, I really should turn around and do something else right now. Sometimes the higher self, if the person that is with the boots on the ground doesn't feel or accept those cues, sometimes the higher self even will do some sleight of hand, like hide the car keys. I can't find my car keys. Where did they go? Or the car has a dead battery. Can't get in the car and go because it has a dead battery. Or there's a last-minute phone call, or any of these last-minute distractions. A lot of times, that's a redirect from the higher self that is noticing, if this aspect of myself makes this choice, it is going to end in a severing of consciousness. And if I want to have continuity of consciousness, I need to act or send energy to this person in this time in order for them to redirect their ship of consciousness. Mostly, so, okay, I'll use an example from my own life. Brief pause. I was planning on purchasing a particular item that I could only buy in Arcata, California. It was a very foggy day, and there's a causeway, like a bridge kind of over areas of marsh and swamp that you have to drive across to get there. And it was very thick pea soup type of fog, and I knew it was a dangerous area of road to have to go across, because I was going to have to make a left turn across all of these lanes of traffic in order to get to where I needed to go. So, and I knew this before I even got in my car. I said, this seems like it might be a little bit of a dangerous night to go out. It seems like it might be a dangerous road to drive on. Do I really want to do this? And the way that we understand reality, we understand that, yes, there is a sea of possibilities that stretch forward in front of us. And also, I'm a powerful co-creator. I am creating possibilities. So when I looked at the weather and considered what it was like outside, I created the possibility of danger. I said, I don't know, it's a foggy night. There could be an accident. As soon as I considered that with my mind, I created that possibility. And I said to myself, I will drive safely and only drive on that area if I feel like it's safe to do so. If it's too foggy, I can turn around and go home, or just go on a different road on a different day. So I set out, and as I started to get closer and closer to this bridge, I felt anxiety. I felt discomfort. I felt a sense of like turn off the radio, stop distracting me, don't think about things that don't matter. I really felt a sense of like it was very important for me to focus on what was going on, so that I didn't have any problems. So awareness can be a very important tool in navigating reality safely. One should not be in denial. You shouldn't say, oh, this isn't actually happening, or pretend that it's not happening. You should say, I recognize that I'm in a dangerous situation and I am maintaining my awareness. I'm being alert. I'm using all of my senses. And when I got to the place where I needed to make the left turn, I used my feelings to navigate onto a positive timeline. I felt to myself, I am going to make this left turn with no problem. And leading up to it, I saw that it's not too foggy for me to see the other traffic. I said to myself, I can see all of the cars. I can see all of the headlights. I can certainly see if it is safe to drive. And as I was merging to where I needed to go, I thought to myself, I can certainly find a break in the traffic in order to do this safely. And then it was so easy for me to, get across and make the left turn that I needed to make. And as I got into the parking lot safely, I felt a little inner, skip of joy, hooray, yippee, I did it. And I literally could perceive the splitting of the other timeline, the other me that got into a minor fender bender because they didn't make it across in time. And that other me was not seriously injured or mangled, but simply felt this kind of feeling like, wah, wah, that's what it feels like. Okay. And that me, that alternate version of me, sent me that message to say, first of all, it wasn't that bad, wouldn't have been the end of the world. And also, you didn't have to experience that because you placed your awareness on the better timeline with your thoughts and your belief, and controlling my emotions was a part of it. Because when we feel fear and anxiety, those feelings can place us on the exact timelines that we do not wish to be experiencing. And P.S., I had to perform a similar maneuver coming out of the parking lot because, of course, I had to go across traffic in a very, challenging way in order to get back home safely. And when I did this, I understood that it was an exercise in tandem with my own higher self. To perceive, you knew something, don't pretend, don't lie to yourself. The simple act of driving the car is a death-defying stunt that we all perform here in this time and place several times a day as if it's nothing. People get into their car and they think, I'm just driving down the road to get some milk. And the truth is, you are, and also you're hurtling forward in this tons of steel, and that there's always the capacity for yourself or someone else to be injured. So we should all celebrate whenever we come home safely at the end of the day. And also, when you're driving, especially when you're driving on the highway, when you're surrounded by other traffic, it is really necessary not to be in denial, to accept the full profundity of what you are doing. It's like if you're surfing in shark-infested water, you're like, wow, I'm really doing this. Don't pretend. Don't pretend the sharks aren't there. The danger is real. The danger of life is real. And you can say it's like a game, but I don't want to minimize it, because in this game, the suffering is real. The death is real. So let's not call it a game. The consequences here are very real. It is like a game in that there's a structure, there's a language, there's a syntax, there's a very clear sense of organization of what you do and what you experience and how that has an impact on life. I've also said, though, that we live in a distorted reality where what you send out doesn't always come back to you clearly and instantaneously. Sometimes what we send out comes back in a distorted or entropic, diminished. It's been affected by entropy in an entropic form. And when that happens, it's like saying, it's not your fault. It's not your fault that you sent out positivity and goodness to the world, and then, your business went bankrupt anyway. Because sometimes in this world where we live, good people who have positive intentions, who send out goodness to the world, don't always have it reflected back to them, or reflected back instantaneously. Sometimes it takes 10 or 15 years, or sometimes it's reflected back but minimally. So you send out $100 worth of good energy and you only get back 10 cents worth of good energy. All of those things happen because of context, the time and place within which we are submerged. I've said before that the human operating system is a hacked operating system. That's part of it. The genetic structure that humans are dealing with right now is also part of it. And the social construct, the economic construct, and the technology that you are all currently submerged within all has an impact on distorting the energy that we send, that what is sent back to us from what we send out. We live in a distorted fun house. We're supposed to live in a world of optical pure mirrors that have no smudges on them and reflect back whatever we send out. This is the world is set up for us to learn. This world is not set up to punish us or make us feel frustrated or bad or anything like that. The world is set up to cultivate our consciousness. It's supposed to be a schoolhouse. It has been changed and distorted, and it now behaves like a funhouse. And that means that we're supposed to learn when you send out a positive intention, then positive things are reflected back to you and you get everything you need. And if you steal and rape and pillage, then you don't get everything you need. That's, you could say, Aurora, that's not what I see around me at all. I see good people accommodate other people and they end up getting shafted and they starve. And bad people, like robber barons, end up becoming billionaires. And this is what I'm talking about. We are living within a distorted reality where what's supposed to happen is when you conform to this higher harmonic thought structure, you get abundance. And when you do not conform, not only do you not get abundance, but you die. You cannot literally maintain your cellular life and flow of consciousness through time. But of course, as I've just stated, we can all think of examples of very wealthy people who treat others horribly, yet still have lots of money reflected back to them. And even if their body becomes sick, they can afford to have 6 heart transplants. I'm thinking of one of the Rothschilds, I believe that that description works for them. So the whole point is that we are supposed to be here in this schoolhouse of the cosmos, learning, using our higher faculties to navigate the various possible timelines of reality, and learning by doing so which characteristics are effective for eternal life or for eternal consciousness. And this is all going to tie in with the conversation at the holiday party of the person who asked about the future presidency and what I said to them. And the real answer is that the person was concerned about average Joe American, that the average Joe is not very educated and is quite xenophobic and taken in by the rhetoric and the political pablum that is served up on the nightly news, and that the average Joe would vote for someone like Trump. And the idea that, certainly myself, I'm a sensible person, and my dinner companion is also a sensible person. We would never vote for, a scoundrel like Trump, but that other less educated people would. And that what would happen? What would we do? And so my real answer is, this is a total redirect away from being concerned about other people and quote unquote the masses and what the general population feels. Total redirect and re-empowerment of yourself as an individual, because it doesn't matter what anyone else or everyone else does. All that matters is where you place your awareness. There are an endless number of possibilities that stretch forward from this moment. In some of those possibilities, there's a horrible, horrible person for president, worse than Hitler, worst fascist in the world. And in some of those possibilities, there's the best person for president, someone who is not corrupted, not taken in by corporate policies, a real person of the people who actually makes policies that are sane and rational and help out the world and help out you as an individual. And what determines your personal experience of which of those timelines or any of the spectrum in between that you experience has nothing at all to do with how the population votes. It has nothing at all to do with the masses or whether there's enough critical mass of awareness, whether there's enough awake people. It has only to do with your own awareness. Let me describe this. If you require being on a timeline where a scoundrel, someone like Trump is elected, then you will place yourself on that timeline with your thoughts and feelings and emotions and belief systems. And you would be there because there is something of value for you to learn. It doesn't necessarily mean it is the happiest or best or most comfortable timeline. It just means that you have something to learn from being there. And that's an important distinction to understand. So for example, to use myself as an example, here I am on this timeline where we, went through an 8-year-long Bush regime, with Bush Jr., the sequel here. And that certainly was not a fun or comfortable regime within which to exist politically. However, I understand that being on this timeline where that person was empowered politically was necessary and important for the cultivation of my consciousness, that I learned certain crucial lessons by being on this timeline, and that I've been able to uplift myself and help and uplift others by being, in these circumstances. So, we have to be impeccable when we understand this quote unquote best timeline as defined by what will help us to cultivate our consciousness best, to go in the right direction the best. But of course, you could then say, well, why don't you just go on a timeline where you're a political prisoner? Oppression, the answer is oppression does not necessarily equal enlightenment and upliftment. The two do not go hand in hand. However, there might have been something that was more valuable for me to learn by being on a timeline where Bush was president, recently, than on alternate timelines. So these are also things to think about. But in moving forward into the future, it doesn't matter how many people are awake. All that matters is whether you are awake. If you are awake, then perhaps you don't have to be on a timeline that involves, let's say, something like a nuclear war. There are timelines that exist. There are some people that need that for their personal journey. Some people cannot imagine things changing or improving on Earth's surface unless there is some kind of total, global thermonuclear explosion and nuclear winter and all of the radioactive pollution that happens from that. Because of their belief system, their structure, their mental structure, and their consciousness, that is what they believe. They need those timelines so that they can have those life experiences and learn and grow from them. Now let's use an example, Hurricane Sandy, in order to understand that people experience different levels of reality in order to get what they need. So there's a lot of 20th century programming of what the apocalypse would be like. People expect social and economic collapse and environmental degradation. And this is not what apocalypse is. Apocalypse comes from Greek apokalypsos, meaning taking the lid off, and refers to the eye opening. So it is an increasing of awareness. However, in this time and place, and based upon an erroneous interpretation of the book of Revelations of the New Testament, a lot of people look at the world and they say the world is going to be destroyed so that something better can come. And this is like very old programming. And this programming even goes into biological programming, a person who believes that their physical body must die or be destroyed, and then their spirit can be reborn or come forward again in a reincarnation or revivification, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. And this is not what I teach or personally espouse at all. I do not believe in the destruction for creation paradigm. I believe in creation for creation. So this is the idea that we do not have to die a physical death. We can transform. We can gradually raise the vibration of the cellular matter of our physical bodies until we occupy a new higher dimensional space without going through all of the intervening changes of state like death, decomposition, putrefaction, and then eventually releasing all of our energy into caloric energy as bacteria eats and digests our body. We don't have to go through all of those stages. That's an old program. We're moving beyond that program. So some people, however, can't conceive of or wrap their head around the idea of this new program. And some people can't conceive of the idea of a non-violent apocalypse. So Hurricane Sandy happened about 3 years ago when I was living in upstate New York. And it was a superstorm, a very unusual type of hurricane, not even really a normal hurricane at all. And it caused a great deal of flooding. It washed out a lot of bridges in the upstate area, and it also really affected Manhattan and did a lot of flooding down there, took out power stations. People didn't have enough electricity. And I'm only bringing this up in order to show examples of people's diverse experience. There were places in the far Rockaways down near Manhattan where there was not only no electricity and no basic services, and people were cold, so they were building fires outside and, huddling around a campfire to stay alive and cooking a can of beans over their campfire. There was minimal police protection in their neighborhoods, and so some people were protecting themselves with, a bow and arrow or with a crossbow. And to contrast, my personal experience was of being in my community in Woodstock, surrounded by my friends and neighbors. We all, because we lost our power, our refrigerator wasn't working anymore. We combined our food and had elegant feasts based on all of our, leftovers. And then as the days went on and we still didn't have power, we then started eating all of our tinned food. We had one meal that was all like smoked oysters and caviar and everything that we had in tins. And we had campfires too. And we, played the guitar and sang songs. We had a very different experience. And of course, my consciousness placed me on the peaceful timelines where I was surrounded by community members and we all shared our food and helped one another. And then the power eventually came back on in about 10 days. And contrasting that with people who lived in a different place and also had a very different expectation of reality. With no judgment, some people needed to feel that frisson, that friction, that difficulty and duress, the kind of sense that society is crumbling, earth is changing. Some people really will not believe that life is changing and consciousness is shifting until or unless they are experiencing something that is a crisis, an urgent trauma. Just like in some people's lives, some people will not quit smoking tobacco until they actually see the tumor on an x-ray and the doctor says you must quit or you will die. Some people won't turn the steering wheel until they're just about to hit the brick wall. They're like, I'm almost going to do it. And then they finally change. So this is about what it takes for people to learn. What does it take? And we are all here in this refinery of consciousness, having life experiences that are refining our consciousness and redirecting our trajectory. So when our consciousness is refined and our trajectory is changed in a positive direction, it means that we are once again more closely conforming with this higher dimensional harmonic pattern. That pattern of energy is like the blood flow of a higher dimensional being. When you're on the right timeline, going in the right direction, the blood, quote unquote, is flowing in a good way for that higher dimensional being. And when you're not on the right timeline, when you hit the membrane of death, this is like having a blood clot for the higher dimensional being. So your life, your individual consciousness matters. Your ups and downs and what you learn and whether you die going out to buy milk matters. It matters in the sense that you are woven into a much larger cosmic tapestry, a context, and that if you are gone, there's a loose thread that's going to pull out and make problems for all of these other threads that are supposed to touch and have an impact. Let's use another example. You're supposed to go out for milk, but you don't go out for milk, and that makes you die. Because when you go out for milk, you end up maybe saving someone from choking or preventing a car accident, or you save a life because you go out to do an ordinary, mundane task. And that can be as profound, a good profound influence to the flow of energy and awareness in the cosmos that we are part of this larger being. Let's also understand this. Just as I care about the health and well-being of each individual cell of my body, like I want my toe to keep on being alive, I want all the cells of my toe to keep on being alive, so too do the higher dimensional beings care about the energy that is flowing at the tiny microscopic level of yours and our life. And not only our life, all of the bacteria that live in our guts, the trees that surround our house. This is all interpenetrating, because let's say the timelines of my gut bacteria don't extend, then I die because I can't digest my food. Or let's say the timelines of the trees that surround my house are not formed properly, and all of these trees fall on my house and crush me in my bed at night. This is what I'm talking about. You are submerged within context, and your timelines interpenetrate and intertwine with other timelines. And extended life or eternal life or the extended trajectory of your consciousness has everything to do with being a good musician in this symphony of the cosmos, being on the right timelines. So you get to control which timelines you're on, where your awareness is, based upon your choices, your beliefs, how you choose to cultivate your emotions. You can be in a dangerous crisis situation, and just like an astronaut, that is in a spacewalk and has something go wrong, they can panic and say, oh no, I'm gonna die, and die. Or they can say, don't panic. Let's think clearly. Let's, be sensible. Let's think and see if we can fix this. And this is what we all need to do every minute of our day. If you're having a problem with your cell phone or your computer, you can either fly off the handle, get super upset and say, this technology doesn't work, I am enraged at the cosmos. Or you can say, hey, this is something that's definitely having a problem. It's definitely a crisis. Let's be sensible and see if we can fix it. And the difference between those two attitudes determines which timeline you are experiencing. Everything about this cosmos is designed to be loving and benevolent and helpful. I know I stated that we are in a fun house of distortion, but we are rapidly ending that. These are the demons or perturbations of the field that have been plaguing humanity for about the past 10 or 12,000 years. And just because it's gone on for a long time does not mean that it is uninterruptible. It means it's gone on for a long time, and now it is the time for it to actually end. So we are now cultivating consciousness in a new way so that these perturbations will not have this negative impact on your trajectory of consciousness. And that is going to have a wonderful impact on you as an individual and on the planet. Earth, Gaia, she has been trying to dream a better dream for a very long time. She does not want to dream a dream about brutality and violence and scarcity and starvation. Just like on the cells of my body. I don't want the cells of my body to be like, we're starving for oxygen, we can barely survive. I want my cells to be well oxygenated. I want them to be like, we have plenty of oxygen, we live in an abundant world. That's how Earth feels about you and I. Earth feels that she wants us as inhabitants of her body to have not only all of the food and shelter that we need, but all of the joy that we need. What are the things that bring you joy? That your creativity, your socialization, all the things that make life worth living. These are the things that the planet actually wishes to dream. The planet does not wish to dream for you to live, a cubicle life, go to work in your cubicle and then drive home in your box and sit in front of your TV and eat a TV dinner. Oh, no, no. Why would she dream that dream? That's a nightmarish reality. The answer to the question at the holiday party is you do not have to be concerned about how many other people vote for Trump or are not enlightened. All you have to do is cultivate your own awareness and put yourself in alignment with the planet and her trajectory, because she is going towards even greater levels of health and vitality and goodness and joy. Thank you so much for joining me. Please continue to tune in as we prepare to give birth to this new dimension.